Yes, hello and welcome to the Footy Interchange. Adam Papalia, Will Schofield with you, back for a second week. The first one got some good feedback, which is brilliant. So we're back here again. This is a show where we traverse the footy highways, we go across the interstate, we go through the interchange, and we check in each and every state and find out what is making news there. A lot going on today. We'll get in, of course, to what's happening in Queensland, a developing situation as those games were expecting to be called off and that announcement to be made pretty much imminently. Might even happen while we're chatting to you right here, and postponed through opening round. And we'll find out, of course, what's happening in all of the other states with our various reporters as well. But Will Schofield is with me. Scoey, great to see you.
Yeah, good to be back for week two. Was really concerned that we wouldn't make it here, but we have, and that's nothing to do with you, all to do with me. Great raving reviews of Adam Papalia and the format of this show. So I'm excited for that because this is your concept, my friend.
I did want to talk to you about that. So my concept being that we crisscross around the state and we chat to lots of different people. Yeah. They say imitation is the best form of flattery.
So where'd you steal it from? Where'd you steal it from? No. Hear me out here. I was waiting for
other people to come at us and steal our format. Lo and behold, I didn't know that format would be stolen from within the own organisation.
What's happened?
The season preview you did yesterday, where you crisscrossed around to different people in different states and pretty much did the exact same thing.
So we stole it.
You stole it.
We stole it from ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, no, we did. Just thought it was that good. We thought, why not do a 4.5 hour show on a public holiday here in Western Australia?
True.
So, look,
I
mate,
got a little bit confused because, I clicked on to the podcast to listen. And I saw and view, and I saw a follically challenged podcast mogul ranting with a bunch of blokes in a studio for more than 4 hours, and thought I clicked onto Joe Rogan for a little bit.
Who's Joe? Me. It was good. We did a big ultimate season preview.
Very long preview.
So if you
guys did well.
Well, if you think about it, 18 teams, 10 to 15 minutes a team.
True,
There's 4 hours. It's not. We honestly, if we could have done it quicker, we would have. If you missed that, go and have a look at it. Because it's on our YouTube. You can listen to it on Shelter Footycast and BackChat as well. But like I said about this show, I think this format is terrific.
Thank you. We're into it. We are looking forward to it. Only taking the mickey a little bit. I did enjoy the season preview yesterday, and we've got lots to get to today as well, so we'll get stuck into that. Always keen for people to get involved in the show as well. If you're on YouTube, you can drop us a question in the comments. We'll try and address those next week as well. There's other ways to get involved
you
too,
You can probably send us an email, hello@backchatstudios.com.au. That'll get you there.
Brilliant. Send us through that. Send us a voice memo, whatever you want to do. Video, we can put those to air and just answer a few questions as we go throughout the season. Now, I've done a fair few Ks this weekend, crisscrossing the southwest of our state to Bunbury and to Mandurah, up and down the highway a few times. What did you make of it? Particularly being there in Bunbury, I thought was fantastic, and I'm going to continue this push for a third team in Western Australia.
Yeah, well, if that's the location that's proposed, or I know you think maybe a little bit closer to Bustleton, maybe that's because that's where you're from. I don't know, but
the airport's there, fly straight in.
I think if you look at it holistically, people. There is a want and need for footy in the southwest of Western Australia. You can't deny it. There was 8,000 people there at the footy on the weekend. That'll be closer to 15.
13.5, they reckon, closer to 15.
When North Melbourne
There was kids standing on the bus shelter on the other side of the ground trying to get a look in through the fence.
If you could guarantee close to 15,000 people a week, would that be enough to put a team down there? Or would you
I
need
think
more
you could
than
easily guarantee 15 per game.
Well, how many would you need down there?
I think you'd probably need a 25,000 seat stadium to make it work.
New oval then?
Possibly, or some more significant redevelopments at Hands over there in Bunbury. You'd have to fully enclose it and probably reclaim a bit of land on that outer side, which would be a bit difficult to do given the road that's going through there. But if you could get a new stadium down there, absolutely. I just think it works on every single level, because a third team in Western Australia, there's going to be a 20th licence. So
that will happen.
It will happen. But where is it going to happen? I know the Northern Territory is putting together a bid. These types of things, all I'm trying to say is these types of things take a while to happen. If you want it to happen, you need to start pushing for it now.
Yes.
So if you need to do the groundwork now before the other states get involved. And the kickback I've had chatting on radio, on 6PR, or talking to people on social media has been that, the competition's not ready for it. It's going to dilute the amount of talent that's there and the amount of footy supporters in Western Australia. But I'm not talking about a team coming in tomorrow. I'm talking about a team coming in 10 to 15 years.
Yes.
And if you want that to happen, that groundwork has to happen now. And from a West Australian point of view, for West Coast and Freo, as much as they don't want it because they think they might lose some fans and supporters and sponsorship money and that type of thing, think of the equalisation measures for them. It's another couple of games a year that they don't have to travel. It's more games a year that the Victorian clubs have to travel out of Victoria to come and play across here. I just think it works. I think WA will be ready for it in 10 years' time. Population's going to be bigger. There's going to be more players available. To me, it just makes sense. I just don't know how we get it to start to happen.
Well, by that stage, Adam Papalia could be the mayor of Busselton and could be pushing it from the mountaintops. I agree with you for what it's worth. We know that the Tasmanian team, slated to come in 2028. They've already got delays on the stadium. Like you said, it takes time. 2029 probably is when we get a stadium there. That team will come in though, and we heard Andrew Dillon bullish about it at the start of the week. Like it's happening, and the 20th team will happen. So
purely because they'll want another game.
Yep.
In the broadcast schedule. So with an even number of teams and adding the 2 extra teams in, you get a whole extra game of footy around, which adds millions of dollars to the broadcast rights.
Infrastructure's here, airports there. I wonder what the team would look like from a playing point of view. Are they happy moving down to Dunsborough and Busselton, and are they happy being out of the big smoke? I don't know.
Well,
Geelong
you would know more than me, having been in a footy club environment as a young man, whether that type of thing would be appealing.
There's no hippie club in Busselton, Paps, but I don't think that's at the top of the list. I think if you're paid well enough, if you've got a good coaching staff, you've got a good list, you can win games of footy, that gets enough over the line.
I think lifestyle-wise for some older players, they definitely look at it.
Family
similar
down there.
to the way it works in Geelong. Anyway, people are going to get sick of me talking about it over the next few years, but I will continue to push the case because I just want to see more footy over this way as well. Before we get to all of our intrepid reporters right around the country, one other thing I wanted to chat to you about. I think it's gone under the radar a little bit because of what's happening with the cyclone and the postponement of what's probably going to happen with opening round.
Yes.
There was a couple of incidents we've seen over the last couple of weeks, which I think are starting to get on the radar of the AFL. I don't think they know how to grade them just yet, but I talk about Ruben Ginbey and Sam Lawler, where Ginbey was there and he's given a nudge to Lawler, trying to protect, I think, the defender coming back, and there's been a collision. Lawler's ended up with a fractured jaw. We saw 2 more incidents over the weekend where players have been injured in a similar type circumstance. One of them being with Dan Curtin, giving a nudge to Brandon Starcevic, again into a pack that was coming back as well. He's ended up going off concussed out of that match. And then Mitch Owens, not quite to the same level, I don't think, the contact from Jordan Sweet coming from behind. But again, just getting a little bit of help into a contest, he's ended up injuring his shoulder. I just think the AFL is going to have a look at this one. I think it will be on their radar. I don't know if they know how to legislate against it at the moment with the MRO in terms of how it will fit into the grading systems. But I wanted to get your thoughts, Scully. As a defender, when you're in that situation, you're jostling with a forward and you're trying to get position, the ball's coming in, there's other players coming back into your path as well. What's your right as a defender there, and what do you think your responsibility should be as a defender in that situation?
The chat around this is increasingly frustrating me. I think this is a typical action and outcome discussion, which we've seen over the last couple of years, and we may not get some clarity for this during the year. We may start seeing guys rubbed out, not rubbed out for an action. For an outcome, not necessarily the action. This action of protecting your own teammates happens more than once a game. It might happen 5 times a quarter. It might happen a bit more. All of those incidents are not someone just pushing someone into a pack trying to hurt them. I would say it happens just as much as a forward as it does a defender. And if anything, the forward pushing the back is usually the one where they're trying to get them out the back or they're trying to push them into the contest so they get a bit of space at the front. This is an action that happens all the time, and I think it's very dangerous to go and punish the outcome. Sam Lawler, great young player coming through. We called that game. That action was not an illegal one, and it shouldn't be something we're trying to get out of the game. But he ends up fracturing his jaw, which is not the outcome anyone wants, especially Sam Lawler. But I don't know how you report against it. When you're the backman in that situation, you have maybe 2 or 3 seconds. The best ones see it early when you've got your teammate coming back or even like opposition coming back, and you've got to make a split decision around how do you protect that person. Usually it's with body. If you're close enough to have body on your opponent that you're immediately opposed to, you try to get them out of the way. We saw it with Brady Hoff, came back with the flight. Ruben Jimby, it was the same player, pushed his man and missed Brady Hoff. And his man ended up safe as anything on the ground to the side. Brady Hoff takes a great mark coming back with the flight. So if we're punishing action, Ruben Jimby should be reported for what he did there.
For doing the same thing.
For exactly the same thing. So that's why it's a ridiculous discussion. And even more so, it happens so often in a game. It happens so often. And to highlight 4 incidents from the weekend across 9 games of footy, it's ridiculous. And it's an absolute overreaction. And I don't think the AFL should look at it. And if they do, it should be put straight in the bin.
I just get the feeling that it might be on the radar as things tend to happen like this when we see a few incidents happen of the same type of thing in a short space of time.
Yeah, and we get this big groundswell of people not having a cry, just this is terrible. We need this out of the game. We got to. This action happens. Like if we look across the competition, it might happen 10 times a game. So it might be 100 times this is happening around. So what? We're going to start reviewing every time this action happens. Is that what you like, Paps?
No, that's not what I'm just asking you the question, Scully, because I knew it might just get under your skin just a touch to kick us off here on the Footy Interchange, mate. Great to see you in good form. Let's crack into it because we've got to get right around the country. We've got to go to where we're trying to find out what the latest is right up there in sunny or not so sunny Queensland right now on the Footy Interchange. The Footy Interchange, Adam Papalia and Will Schofield, and we head straight to Queensland because that is where all the news is going on right around the country about the weather conditions over there, the cyclone coming through. We hope that everyone can stay safe up there, but we're still talking, Scully, about whether they're going to play a game of footy or not. Surely not. We're expecting a decision anytime, really, that it's going to be postponed. But we head now to Tommy Rockliff, who's over there in Queensland for us on the Footy Interchange. I'm not sure if he's out.
He's at the Gabba.
Trying to get supplies for bunkering down in his house over the next couple of days before the wild weather hits. But Tommy, great to chat to you, mate. Of course, 200 gamer for Port and for Brisbane as well. We can check him out at Rockliff Finance. Mate, how are things up there? How are you feeling ahead of this big storm that's going to blow in?
Yeah, looking forward to, the unknown, I suppose. Not really looking forward to it, but you never know with the bomb anymore. They could forecast it to come and hit, and it may go to New Zealand. So we'll just wait and see what happens. But, obviously a bit nervous at the moment. We're back to that buying spree at supermarkets, so all the staples and water's gone for the locals. But realistically, I think the game will be called off or certainly postponed. I'm just in here at the Gabba at the moment, and all the communication around the ground is that the government will shut it down Thursday. Gabba management won't open the Gabba up. Obviously, you don't want people on the roads with predicted 130k winds. I know Brisbane's preference is to postpone it, play it in their bye round 3. Obviously, the effects on the Gold Coast as well. The wind should be cleared by Saturday, so there's no reason they can't play. I mean, there may be a fair bit of water around, but sort of forecasting 100 mils each day. But, you never know. There was a player back at Port Adelaide in the Sample when it was pretty wet. He had 57 one day, Scully, in wet weather. So
get him back out there. Can we sign him up as a pre-season supplemental player just for a wet weather specialist?
I never knew Tom Rockliff for his penetrating kicks. I reckon if you were kicking into the 150k an hour winds predicted to be going backwards for a guy over your head.
No, absolutely it would. So I think wiser heads will prevail. I think we'll see a change. Again, what's the time? It's 2:00 local time here on Tuesday afternoon when we're recording this. I'd expect an announcement probably pretty soon. You don't want people on the roads. That's the most dangerous thing, I think, with what's forecast to come in.
Yeah, it sounds like it's less of a footy decision. You could probably get away with it and you'd have, dour midfielders like yourself racking up for 55. But it's more about the people. You can't get people to the ground. The footy players are trying to sandbag their homes.
Yeah. And that's why they haven't switched it, I don't think, to Victoria, because the players are having to do exactly that. Like, how are people going over there, Rocky, in terms of, are people nervous about it? I mean, it seems unusual to have a cyclone this late or this early in the year, or this late in the season.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I don't think cyclones ever really make it down to Brisbane. I think the last one may have been 50 years ago or the like. So it's a pretty rare occurrence here. We're used to wild weather. But, I think there's certainly a little bit nervous. As I said, there's panic buying at the supermarkets and stuff. It's pretty crazy out there at those places at the moment. So as long as everyone stays safe, try and limit the damage as best you can and hopefully no deaths.
So I'm just reading 1 minute ago, Mitch Cleary, one of the best in the business. Gold Coast Essendon on Saturday has been postponed. Expecting more details from the AFL in the next hour, but still no update on the Brisbane Geelong game. So I don't quite get that. But Gold Coast Essendon done. That's postponed. Talking about Gold Coast, and it's probably, I guess, enough on the cyclone and what that means. What have you liked from them in the pre-season? I know it's a week gone here, Tom, but what's Gold Coast look like to you?
I think they could potentially have the best defence, Scully, by come season ends. The best balance of attacking, rebound, but also lockdown defenders. You've got Collins, who just gets it done week in, week out. Charlie Ballard, who's a outstanding intercept marker. Mac Andrew, we know how impressive he's been. But the additions of Reilly, Noble off half-back, and Bodie Hewland as well. They've just ticked all the right elements for a defence where you can run and carry, good slick ball users off half-back who can chop you in half, but also get the job defensively, intercept markers, but also the lockdown. So I think by the season's end, we may be talking about Gold Coast and being the best defence in the competition.
So I know we spoke about them last week. Does that mean you've got them locked into the finals if they've got the best defence?
No, I don't have them in me.
Come on.
I think they've still got issues with their scoring. That they're key forwards. King's a big worry for me. I mentioned it last week as well. I think he plays like he's still playing junior footy, schoolyard footy. I think if he can mature and get the separation, do his work off the footy, then maybe that changes. But I think they're still, their defence is sound, their midfield sound. I've got nerves about their forward half.
Levi Ashcroft, I've never seen him play, but he's rearing his favourite across the land for the NAB Rising Star. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they should nearly give it to him. I think he's pretty much a lock. And I think, I don't know if you speak odds on this show or not, but I think you can get fives. I think by round 3, I know they probably don't play this weekend. Round 3, I think it'd be $1.80. His ability just to not be noticed. So he played last week. He ended up having mid-20s, just went about his business. You didn't notice him. He didn't look out of place, but he just finds the footy. He's much like his brother, just accumulates and does all the right things. He gets to the right spots in the contest. He's strong. He's tough. He uses it good. So I think for an 18-year-old, he didn't look out of place. He looked like he was 23, 24 out there, and he looks ready-made to play AFL footy. I'd be super surprised if he plays 15 to 20 games if he didn't win the Rising Star.
Brilliant stuff, mate. Stay safe over there. I hope you've got enough water, enough toilet paper, all the supplies that you need to try and get off the shelf there at the supermarkets, mate. But really good to chat to you. And stay safe up there, and we'll chat again next week.
Right on. Good on you. Thanks for having me.
Tommy Rockliff there, of course, great to have him part of the Footy Interchange, Scully. It's been a big decision for the AFL if they're heading down this path of postponing both games.
The Gold Coast Essendon one's more of an issue, though, isn't it?
Well, they don't quite know where to put that, I don't think, later in the year, because at least Brisbane and Geelong have a bye in round 3, so they can just move that game to there. The other one that they need to do is to try to move that. So the opening round, we're only going to have 2 games of footy, which means we can go to Sydney now.
Yes.
And let's go to Cal Sinclair, who is with us, as we established last week, the smartest backup ruckman of all time, and he joins us again now, Cal. Great to see you, mate. Thanks very much.
Good to be back, and great to be welcomed back for episode 2. I did myself a good service last week.
No, it's great to have you back, mate. And you guys are going to be the centre of the footy universe now that the games in Queensland have looking like they're going to be called off. So for Sydney and the Giants, all focus turns to them, and particularly for the Swans, mate, it's been a tough pre-season for them, and that confirmation of Errol Goulden being out for so long, it's a pretty brutal blow.
No, it certainly is. And it's a bit of a different landscape here in Sydney at the moment. The AFL is competing with the NRL in Las Vegas, which was a massive hit last weekend. But no, you are right. I think Errol Goulden's hit to the Swans midfield is certainly going to be an adjustment for them. In saying that, the one thing that the Swans do have in that midfield group is depth. I think one guy that would be potentially licking his lips, and I mean this with all due respect, would be Callum Mills. He missed a fair bit of footy last year and wasn't quite, there wasn't much confidence of whether he could slot back into that midfield. I think now with Errol gone, he'll be able to, find some more midfield minutes going into this season, whereas probably last year with his injuries, they probably would have struggled to find him a spot, as we saw at the back end of last year.
We might need to get Callum Mills jumping off that bed sooner rather than later. I think he's struggling with a little bit of plantar fascia, which we might need to throw him off the top deck early, which, I don't know Callum well, but he feels like the sort of guy that I reckon he's putting a couple of weights on top of him and he's jumping straight off and snapping that in half. Staying with Sydney, Cal, Corey Warner, not Chad. I should have said C. Warner,
Yes.
signs on for 2 years. Chad's brother, Corey. Do you think that has an impact on Chad and his signature?
Well, it's interesting. I did table that this morning with you guys, and I definitely mean this with all due respect to Corey, because I think last year, particularly in the VFL and the handful of games he played, he did show a lot of improvement in his football. And from all reports, the pre-season he's had is fantastic. But I guess I just question maybe the timing of Corey's extension. You know, it's quite rare with the performances that he's put in. Would you give him a 2-year extension at the start of this season? I just wonder, could it be a little strategic move for the Swans in order to retain Chad? The reality is they aren't going to be able to compete with the potential $2 million offer that's supposedly out there from the West Australian clubs. But brotherly love, blood's thicker than money, or blood's thicker than water, whatever the saying is. But, you just don't know. We just don't know. I think you would do everything you can to retain Chad and his services. And if his brother's just a little 1%er of that, go for it. But well done to Corey Warner. He's shown a lot of improvement in his footy, and I'm sure he'll have a great 2 years ahead of him.
Yeah, and if he can get a little lift as well, just for trying to entice Chad to stay there too, that's a bonus for the brother as well. We switch across to the Giants. What are you thinking there with them? And a little injury blow for Jake Stringer. He's going to be fascinating as to how he fits into that Giants forward line.
Yeah, probably. I won't reiterate or echo what I said last week, but I do believe both these teams, the Swans and the Giants, are probably the best in the competition. I think the last thing Jake needs is probably another setback. Unfortunately, from reports, I did bump into Adam Kingsley in a cafe, and Jake supposedly had an infection for about 10 days in hospital. They did give him a half in the VFL to kind of tune him up for a potential round one appearance, but he didn't even get through the game with a hamstring strain. I think it's just a bit of a blow. I think now you'll start to, the continued conversation with Jake around, his conditioning aspect. Is he prepared and ready to go? I think because it's early in the year, considering he was in hospital, we'll kind of give him some leeway on that one. But, mate, the reality is they'll be wanting Jake to have an impact, and they'll be looking at his conditioning very closely. And they'll want him out there round one. But unfortunately, with a hamstring, you're probably gone for a month now.
The Giants are clearly all in this year. You look at some of their top-end players, and, like any team in the comp, their best players are on the older side, and some of them are, over 30. You think Cornelio and Kelly and Whitfield and guys like this that are, they want a premiership this year. Callan Ward is the eldest of all of those. I saw a little bit of news come across of what his setup's going to be. Can you give us a bit more insight?
Yeah, well, he probably planned for 2024 to probably be his last season, and he's probably got three children now. So I think that the relocation back to Victoria was very much on the cards. I just think the Giants are so close, and I think that's why Callum probably just couldn't quite walk away. It's interesting. He is going to be, for part of this season, from reports, training a little bit remotely, as his three children, his wife, are going to be based in Melbourne. So it's definitely Callum Ward's last year. I'm going to call this one, Sky. I think this is going to be the best story of the year. Callum Ward is going to be sent off with a premiership in his last game.
I like that.
A bit of news coming through from Cal early on, then some big predictions at the end, mate.
Strong.
Very, very strong. Love your work. Great to chat to you. I'm sure we'll hear you on the footy doing a bit with the ABC across the season in the coming rounds as well, and enjoy being able to actually get to the footy whilst the rest of us are sort of waiting an extra week to try to do that.
No worries. Believe it or not, I'm actually heading to Western Australia tomorrow for my brother's wedding. So just go in, mate. Get me in the studio. I'll love a chat.
Absolutely. Cal Sinclair returns to the West.
Very good. Thank you, Cal. On that note, we'll leave it. We'll let it go. Cal Sinclair there. Brilliant stuff.
I think that was Ruck Taps he was doing there.
Just
right?
knocking it down.
Yeah, no worries.
Not to you, to one of the midfield.
The over the top, the flipper, the ripper, whatever.
Or maybe at the wedding it's beers, just knocking them left, right and centre around for the reception as well.
Yes.
Good stuff. Footy in New South Wales I think is going to be pretty strong this year. You're listening to the Footy Interchange. The Footy Interchange. We've already had a chat, of course, up there in Queensland with Tommy Rockliff, and now we head to Victoria because, Scully, all the chat obviously this round has been about the weather that's up there, how the AFL's actually handled this and what the decisions are going to be over the rest of the days and how they reshuffle everything. We head now to Drew Jones from Fox Sports in Victoria, of course, and Goat Fantasy as well, which is all launched. We'll get to that shortly, Drewy. Very exciting stuff from you as well, mate, but I know you've been down to the Cats this morning. What's the latest that you're hearing there in Victoria, and how do you think the AFL actually handled all this so far?
Hello, Paps. Yeah, and g'day, Scully. So just chatted to Chris Scott, who said the Cats are ready to play, and they're keen to have a game, but obviously it's just totally out of their hands. So they're just waiting on the AFL to officially come through with their decision on how to take this forward. I've just been thinking about this, obviously health and safety of the people in Queensland, that is the most important thing. Let's not worry about a game of football, but just thinking, was there a way that we could have got ahead of this a little bit quicker? Could we have just abandoned the opening round in Queensland idea? Could the AFL maybe on Monday have said, all right, it looks pretty unlikely that we're going to be able to get a game away, particularly Thursday night. I'm telling you right now, the weather right now in Victoria is absolutely beautiful. 25 degrees, the sun is out. There's a couple of stadiums that are ready to go. I know that the AFL are so committed to the opening rounds being in the northern states, but we could be having a game guaranteed on Thursday night. And the people of Queensland, who unfortunately are probably going to be defending their homes and stuck inside during a cyclone, they could have been able to watch their Brisbane Lions play and potentially get their premiership defence off to the perfect start, playing Geelong, maybe at GMHBA or at the MCG or at Marvel. So I just wonder if we could have been more nimble and a little quicker off the mark, whether we could have got a game guaranteed on Thursday night, because it's a real shame that it looks like we're not going to have any footy on Thursday.
Well, overall, Drew, I'm very happy to hear that you've got some nice weather in Victoria. I'm sure that'll be very shortly lived, and then we'll be back to the norm where it's pissing down rain and sideways wind. So well done to you guys for sorting your weather out for a week. Look, I kind of agree with you, mate. I think this probably should have been called a bit earlier, but I guess we are where we are. Pre-season, even though it's a 1 weeker, we are effectively done in pre-season. Have you seen sort of movement across players and clubs? Who's moving up and down here? What do you like? What don't you like? Who's put their case forward?
Okay, well, we're focused on Victorian team, so that's where I'll start. Stocks up for me after watching on Sunday is Melbourne, and I'll tell you why. I know we said last week that Simon Goodwin's under pressure, but Christian Petrarca just looked absolutely sensational, showing no ill effects of everything that he went through injury-wise last season. And he hasn't had a great preseason in terms of getting the cracked rib and not being able to do contact for a while. But he didn't show any signs that he was affected by it. So, lots of bulk midfield minutes for Christian Petrarca, I just thought was a great sign. He's one of the competition's best players when he's up and running. So if he's going to play, back to his best, then that's a massive, massive boost for the Demons. And then Clayton Oliver kicks 3 goals, looked like the old Clary, bursting away from stoppage, doing the hard things. He looked hungry. He's achieved so much in his footy career, premiership player, multiple All-Australians and Bluey Truscott medals, but looked like he had a spark back in his game. So that's great for the Demons and certainly for Simon Goodwin. And then I'm a big Pies guy this season. I know that maybe the general footy fan won't like me saying that, but I think they bounce back into the finals. I think the vibes are good with Craig McRae. I love Josh Dacos off halfback. I think he is one of the most talented players in terms of skill set, in terms of footy IQ, and an amazing aerobic athlete. I think his bounce off halfback combined with Dan Houston gives the Pies a whole different look, a whole different feel. So I'm big on the Pies.
Yeah, the D's in particular, Clayton Oliver was exceptional on the weekend. Seeing them in person and calling that game, Drew, that goalie kick where he spun and kicked it off the left, like he did, as you said, look like his old self again. So some good signs there for the D's. What about some of those sides? I mean, it's only the preseason. We always say that you can't read too much into it. We get excited about the teams that do well, but the ones that didn't do so well in that hit out, the fans just start to get a little bit nervous, a little bit itchy in their seat just before the start of the season.
Yeah, I don't want to punch down on Richmond because clearly they've had so much turnover, but they really struggled as the game went on against Collingwood. But I think St Kilda, to me, is where the stock's down. We talked about their injuries last week, so they're missing or some of their best players have had interrupted pre-seasons. But I look at that Adelaide game in round one, and I think the Crows could really run up the score against the Saints, who just don't look like they're up to speed. And I'm sure that Ross Lyon can hold things together, because I think he's certainly one of the better coaches of the modern era. But is that actually a good thing? Like, St Kilda bottoming out and getting a top 3 draft pick would probably be really good for the club. But they don't believe that they're in that space. They've got some good young players. Messiah Wangley-Miller, if they can re-sign him, I think he's a superstar. And Matthias Philippou, I think, has got a big future. Marshall, one of the best rucks in the comp. But yeah, apart from that, I don't see a lot of upside. This is not a team that's going to win the flag. They could really benefit from some high-end talent. So watch on the Saints in round one. And then the Dogs, I just think these injuries are piling up for Luke Beveridge, and now Marcus Bontempelli, the skipper, out for 6 weeks with the complex calf. So they've got North Melbourne round one, who I think North have done some good things with their list, and I reckon they're on the improve. So big danger game for them early in the season with Luke Beveridge out of contract and plenty of discussion about his future. So stocks down, unfortunately, for the wounded Dogs.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I thought North Melbourne were very good in Bunbury on the weekend, so I'd be concerned about that if I was a Dogs fan as well. What about fantasy land, Drew?
It's all launched, Scully.
What?
It's out there.
Oh, Goat Fantasy News.
That's the one.
Don't worry, I know it's launched, mate. There's a very big uptick in followers going on. Tell me what's going on fantasy, because I've got to be honest, my team's in a bit of trouble. I had Butters in there. Bont was very much on the radar. Errol Goulden was on the radar. I'm in trouble. I need a bit of news to tell me what's going on.
Yeah, it's brutal out there. Injury-wise, some superstars. I did a slider draft last night, which is Mariah's Magic. Their new thing where you play a draft comp, but you're against sort of people all around Australia, and to see the names that were just staying there at the top of the list due to injury, Butters and Bontempelli and Goulden. So I'm now looking at Christian Petrarca after the way that he played on Sunday. I think he's underpriced. So this is in salary cap format, where if you've got your draft to come, I think bump Christian Petrarca up. I'm not sure about those forward minutes that were mooted previously. He just looks like full-time mid, with Simon Goodwin trying to get the Ds back up the ladder. One that might have slipped under the radar for you on Saturday afternoon at RSCA Park was Jeremy Finlayson playing as an intercept defender for Port Adelaide. He racked up, I think, 17 marks or something like that. Pretty cheap 17. As a forward. I reckon Finlayson, probably not someone who's been on our fantasy radar too much, but I think he could be good value early in the season with a couple of Port Adelaide key defenders out. Angus Sheldrick with Goulden out, I think he gets a bump in midfield minutes. And then he's a veteran, he's a fantasy veteran, but Tom Liberatore without Bontempelli dominated for the Dogs against Hawthorn through the midfield. He could get some serious numbers. And if Brisbane don't play in opening rounds, now we don't have to worry about the bye in round 3. So Will Ashcroft is ridiculously underpriced, the Norm Smith medalist. He, I think, all of a sudden surges into calculations because you don't have to worry about missing that game early. Anyone catching your eye?
Riley Sanders, if we're talking about the Bulldogs midfield, we know Libba's good. We already know that. Riley Sanders takes all of Bont's minutes and goes 130 plus for the first 4 rounds. Thanks for coming.
Huge. What do you like?
Stuff. I actually saw, I don't know, because I watched him on the weekend, I think Jack Graham's going to be in about the midfield too, so I think he's one that could just fly under the radar a bit.
Cheap forward, Jack Graham.
Yeah, so I think he could be a little bit of good value. I need to check out a bit more of your stuff over the next 24 hours, Drew, because I've got my draft tomorrow night and I've got no idea at this stage, mate. So we'll be checking it out. The handle that people can go and check out, Goat Fantasy News. Thank you very much, mate. We'll chat again next week.
Oh, and boys, just before I go, I know I'm at work.
Here we go. Here we go.
West Coast staff.
Oh, you got another one. You had 4 of them last week in the background.
No matter where I am, home or away, I've still got West Coast covered.
If you're listening to this and not watching, he's got the Eagles premiership posters. He had 4 of them in his house last week. He's brought one into work as well. Victorian just hiding over there. Sorry, West Aussie just hiding over there in Victoria. Love your work, Drew. Thanks, mate. We'll chat next week.
Thanks, boys.
Drew Jones there. Some good work from him there. We can check it all out on Goat Fantasy News.
I've got AFL tonight, tomorrow. with Drew. I expect him to be in a scarf, a West Coast scarf, and waving it around and going at
They've
it.
somehow won a preseason game against North Melbourne, and he's all in.
Mate, you see the preseason ladder? They were top two, Sydney and West Coast.
He's almost. I still have no idea how they won that game, and I was calling the whole thing.
It's one of the worst wins you've ever seen.
It was a shocking game. Anyway, thanks to Drew Jones. This is the Footy Interchange. The Footy Interchange, let's head to South Australia. Simeon Thomas Wilson is with us, of course, from the Adelaide Advertiser, from Code Sports as well, back this week. Simeon, great to chat to you again, mate, talking all things South Australian footy. And we kick it off, of course, with Port Adelaide. They're going to be a big talking point this year. The injury to Zach Butters, though, Connor Rosie, you reckon he needs to stand up?
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for having me again. I guess it was terrible news for Port Adelaide last week with it being confirmed that Zach Butters is out for about 6 weeks. So that rules him out probably till maybe round 5 or so, you'd say. So probably their best player, which means, I guess, from my perspective, a lot of Port Adelaide people there, all eyes are going to be on their captain, Connor Rosie, and whether he can step up to just fill Zach Butters' big shoes there, because we all know that Connor Rosie, very talented player, probably didn't have the year that he that we all thought he would have last year in his first year as captain of the Power. Started off really well, then got that really public injury in the showdown where he did his ham. He tried to, before the showdown against St Kilda, and tried to play through it the week after. That was hamstring and came off. Then got another injury after that. So he kind of had a little bit of an inconsistent year, but I think all eyes are going to be on whether he can stand up with Butters out. And just based on the pre-season performance, he got 39 in the goal, so it's a pretty good start for him so far.
Yeah, that'll take about 4 games for me to get those sort of numbers. I try to stay quite across what's happening in the back lines in the competition, Simeon, and I find this one an interesting one because I think Port Adelaide's biggest weakness is their availability of goal kickers in their side, but they paid Jeremy Finlayson across the back line, intercepting and loose almost across their half back line. Did you like it? Do you think he's a backman, or are they giving up too much in front of the footy?
Well, he actually did start his career at GWS as a backman, came into the team and then went forward, so he can play there. And I think you have to have that caveat. It was against St Kilda, who do give up a lot of kicks and marks to defenders, but he looked really impressive back there. Like, that Port were dominant. He was dominant. He had 29 disposals, but I think the big thing for him was 13 marks, and a lot of them were intercept marks as well. So how that go against probably a stronger team, you don't know, about 1 week. It was like last week. It was really impressive to see how it goes, because he's a really good ball user, and Port still maybe searching for that now that Houston's gone. And I guess when you do have a Asava there, he isn't the best ball user, so there could be a little decision there for Port to make for round 1, because Asava was, when I was at a training yesterday, Asava was moving quite well. He was, I guess, going through tests on that knee. So maybe Port actually now just easing back into it. He doesn't have to play round 1 against Collingwood.
We move across from Port Adelaide to the Crows, Simeon. And what's the feeling like in Adelaide? I think a lot of people, Sky, are tipping the Crows to move up the table this year, but do they have the midfield? Do they have that talent that in that core group to actually really make an impact and compete with some of those other midfields in the comp?
Yeah, I think the expectations are only rising with the Crows fans after beating Brisbane. I know it's a pre-season game, but there's a lot of positive signs to take out of that. Probably the big one when I was watching it is after years and years where we've spoken about them saying, is their midfield too one-pace, slow, one-dimensional, whatever. They finally look like they've got some speed and acceleration, agility, power in there. Like, adding Isaac Rankin in there, who just is a star, what he can do. Sid Draper came in and had an absolutely amazing cameo at the end. And they ended with Rankin, Sid Draper, and Jack Saligo has probably been maybe their best midfielder this pre-season at the centre bounce for when the game was on the line and they were able to get the win over Brisbane. So you had a guy like Dawson in there who was really good before that. He was playing that kind of almost like quarterback role. He's going behind and just setting it all up with his left foot. And you got Matt Crouch in there just winning hard ball, and James Peatling, who had a pretty impressive first run in Crows colours as well. So I think they do. I think they've actually finally maybe got a midfield mix that can really take the teams in the best teams in the comp.
I think the Crows will look at what Geelong do with Tom Stewart. Start him in the midfield. This is the same with Dawson, right? Start him in the midfield, drop him back behind the footy. I think they'll be trying to blueprint that a little bit. I agree with you. I think Adelaide's midfield is good enough to stand up against the best in the comp. Jake Saligo had a great year last year. He'll be looking to step up into some of the best midfielders in the comp this year. He's a young player. I really like him. And if he can do that, if he can get Rankin, if he can run Reilly through there a tiny bit, which you didn't mention, I think it looks good. With all of that chat, though, and you mentioned Sid Draper, Dan Curtin is one high draft pick last year, much talked about over here in the West. What are they doing with him? Are they playing him in defence, in the midfield? What do you think?
Well, they've been playing him forward this pre-season, right. So they've been going with 4 talls. So not all of rarely on at the same time, but having him with Tex, Reilly Thilthorpe, Darcy Fogarty, and then either he's playing forward, he's on a wing, which they still kind of say they don't know where his best position is or it's going to be, which is kind of interesting with him because he is so tall. Like he's 197 centimeters. He put on 10 kilos over the off season, but his running still really good. He's got all his talent. They just don't know where to play him, which is kind of going to be an interesting one to watch. Malcolm Blight was saying yesterday, just give him a run somewhere in the team. I don't know if it's going to work as a forward or is it they tried him as a big body midfielder last year. Is he a key defender? I don't know. I don't think the Crows know at this stage.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting watch. Simeon, thanks so much for your time, mate. Great to chat.
Thanks, guys.
Sky, I reckon if the Crows don't know what to do with Dan Curtin, there'd be 2 WA teams that'd be more than happy to just bring him back over this way.
I reckon West Coast
off
could
their hands.
Find a spot for him anywhere. Fremantle the same.
Just ask, well, where do you want to play Dan? And they'll just play him there completely.
Captain, no worries.
Yeah, exactly. No,
we haven't signed ours, says West Coast.
Absolutely everything. Speaking of WA, I think we could head straight there now too because in Western Australia, there's some massive news going on today, Scully, and really not a badly kept secret because we're all kind of expecting it to happen. Not that his brother gave you too much of an inkling as to what was actually going to go on here. You spoke to him yesterday. He gave you donuts.
We hear about the Brayshaw, alliance and the way they're set up and how close they all are and all this information. I speak to Hamish Brayshaw for 4 hours yesterday. I put it straight to him. Has your brother signed? Can you break the news? Hasn't done it. He tells us he played golf with Andy all yesterday and confirms that Andy didn't mention it to him.
Nothing.
So I don't know what's going on over there. Maybe the Brayshaws need a bit of a magnifying glass.
Not talking enough to each other. But that is the big news out of WA today as we head to Eliza Reilly, absolutely gun reporter out of the West for Code Sports, and she joins us now. Eliza, huge news today at Freo with Andy Brayshaw finally confirming that 6-year deal.
Yes, I think Freo fans have been waiting for this for a long time because Freo have made a bit of a habit of surprising us on Christmas Day with, big contract re-signings. You think of Caleb Strong a few years ago and Sean Darcy wasn't too close to Christmas either. So finally, after all this wait, we get the announcement today and the Dockers now have a significant portion of that, what they hope will be a premiership list locked in for the long term. So really exciting news for Fremantle fans. He wants to be a one-club player. He spoke about that when he put pen to paper on this new deal. And I think he's still obviously a very strong contender to be Fremantle's next captain as well when Alex Pearce does decide to step away. So he's a crucial cog in this Fremantle midfield and can't wait to see what he does in the next 6 years.
For 2 years, there has been an absolute fascination with the 2 big men at Fremantle, Sean Darcy, Luke Jackson. It feels like any time we speak about Freo, something is happening with these 2. It's injuries, it's contracts, it's playing position. Luke Jackson this week, reported by Mitch Cleary early this week that clubs are coming for him. Is this happening? Is this real? What are you hearing? What do you think?
It actually started during the game on the weekend when he was playing against Melbourne. And they were I was watching before the game. There was a lot of chat going on, very friendly, smiling.
Yeah, look, his mates with him.
Chatting to Simon Good. Oh, no, he won a flag there. But is that why this stuff's all happened again? Because they've seen him just, having a few chats. Eliza, what's your read on it?
Yeah, Sky, I know you're not a fan of this one. Big names being thrown up in trade conversations and you were quite strong on it on X over the weekend.
It's March. Eliza, it is March. It is the 4th of March. What is happening?
You can look at it one of two ways, I think. You can either say, look, Luke Jackson is very happy in Perth. He wants to be part of Fremantle's first premiership team, but he's looking at what's going on around the competition, and he's suddenly seeing someone like Tom De Koning get offered a bit more than what he's currently on. Now, he's obviously got this 5-year contract up until 2029 on something we think is around the 900K a year mark. Tom's getting thrown a bit more than that at him. So whether it's a play by his sort of management team to look at the current market value of these versatile, dominant rucks and try and get a bit more money out of Fremantle, or you can look at it from the Victorian and specifically Melbourne club point of view, where they're thinking, hey, we know that Cozzy Pickett is homesick and very well might explore a trade to Fremantle at the end of the year. It's pretty convenient for us if we throw up someone like Luke Jackson in trade conversations and try and plant the seed early. So when we do get to the end of the year, there is a chance that we can get someone who we think is of similar value back. But I think that this distinguishing factor at the moment is the report suggests that Luke Jackson could be swayed to turn his head, but he hasn't turned his head yet, and I think that's where this one sits.
I'll tell you what, Fremantle are going to have to do some work to get 7 first-round draft picks next year to go and get Chad Warner and Cozzy Pickett, because Brad Green, president of Melbourne, wants 3 first-rounders, and Chad's probably 4 first-rounders if Cozzy's 3. I will say, just for a bit of, you know that I'm not a big newsbreaker, but I've got a couple of things to add to the Luke Jackson thing. We sat down and did a lie detector test with Luke about 3 weeks ago, so I'm looking forward to those results coming out. And I also went to primary school with his current partner, so I've got a little bit of finger on the pulse as well, Paps.
What's your inside word there?
Can't tell you, Paps. Now let's move to West.
You can't just tease that and give us nothing.
Let's go to the West Coast Eagles. Thank you, Adam Papalia. All will come out in the wash, I promise.
All right.
West Coast, Eliza. The Richmond recruits, probably including Andrew McWalter, but a couple of players as well. What are you thinking their impact's been on the group?
Yeah, it's been massive, and you don't need to look that far to see Liam Baker kicking the winning goal on the weekend. Albeit it was a practice match, but it was a pretty fantastic goal, sort of 55 metres out late in the game to give West Coast that victory, and his sort of spark and energy off half-back flank I think is going to be vital for the Eagles this season. And then someone like Jack Graham, his physical presence around the ball, some really big tackles he laid, and I think his grunt is going to be much needed early in the season, with Elliot Yeo set to be sidelined for a few more weeks leading into round 1. So they have come in and had pretty much an instant impact. And Scott, you might be able to speak a bit more to this, but you look at sort of Eagles big name recruits in the past, people like Jack Redden, Lewis Jetta, they were both, sort of dropped in their first season at the club and just took a while to sort of get the wheels in motion and find their feet in a new state and a new system. Someone like Matt Flynn recently as well, obviously was hammered by injuries. I feel like there is sort of a bit of precedence of recruits taking a little while to sort of find their feet at West Coast, whereas these two obviously have played that Richmond system for so long, walk into a very similar game plan, and with McWalter at the helm, and they look like they're going to have an instant impact, which I think is going to be really exciting for Eagles fans this year.
Well, Elliot Yeo, it took us 2 or 3 years to figure out he was a midfielder, and he started winning best and fairest and premierships as a mid, but of course we started him in the back line at West Coast. So he's another big guy. Josh Kennedy didn't quite have the same adaptation troubles. He was a star from the minute he got there. But, yeah, I agree with you, Eliza. I think the ability for players to find, even just clarity around what they're trying to do. I think of Xavier Ellis coming across when Adam Simpson came to the football club. Xavier, and he'll speak to this as well, he was recruited because, 1, good player, but 2, he really knew Simo well. He knew how he rolled, and it really helped. It was almost a link between the players and the new coach. So I think it's a similar mindset.
Brilliant stuff. Eliza, great to chat to you. As always, we'll chat again next week. Thanks very much.
See you guys.
Eliza Reilly there with all of the latest out of the West here on the Footy Interchange. The Footy Interchange, Adam Papalia, Will Schofield, been a busy show, Scoey, and it's kind of been, as we've been recording this, a developing situation. Spoke to Tommy Rockliff up there in Queensland, and it has now been confirmed. I've got the official press release through from the AFL saying that they've moved to reschedule Thursday night season opening match between Brisbane and Geelong, as well as Saturday's Gold Coast and Essendon match. Their reasons being the abundance of caution, and after ongoing communication with the Queensland government, the Bureau, the stadiums in Queensland, the AFL's made the decision to ensure the health and safety of the clubs, players, officials, and importantly, the wider southeastern Queensland and northern New South Wales community remains the priority. The AFL will announce alternate schedules for these matches as soon as possible as they continue to work with the clubs and venues on possible scenarios. The rescheduled matches won't be played during opening round. So
it's a big blow.
It is.
Absolutely. I understand all the community safety, and we've said it 100 times. We hope all that works. But if we just talk about footy, it's a big deal that trying to get this opening round thing over the line. NRL, which they're trying to compete with, just come back from Vegas, goes off really well. They have a great time over there, and then half the games are cut out of opening round. Maybe we should have a game over here in the West, perhaps.
Well, what do you reckon about opening round in general, though?
I like it.
But, should it be wider? Should there be at least one game in each state for opening round?
Yes.
That's what I would like to see.
Yeah, I think it would make sense to do New South Wales, Queensland, one in South Australia, one in Western Australia. If they want to keep them out of Melbourne, no worries.
Yeah.
Great. Sounds good. But I think the concept of opening round, I know people don't like the name of it. I know people don't particularly like the 4 game or the I look at it and see if the alternative is to get rid of it, we lose a week of footy. I like that there's more footy. I'm a pretty simple man, Paps. I would rather have 4 games of footy this weekend than none. I'd rather 6 than 0 as well.
Yep.
I'd probably rather 6 than 4.
We've got 2 now, Scully. So looking forward to New South Wales round this weekend, to be honest.
Sinclair, happy man.
Well, he's not going to be there. But he's the people in New South Wales at least get some footy. I think it's still going to be pretty wet and wild, though, isn't it, over there? So
yes.
With the cyclone conditions just sort of filtering down a little bit, we hope that everyone in Queensland can stay safe. That is the most important thing. I think common sense has prevailed here. We don't want to play these games with no crowds there whatsoever.
The AFL didn't want to make this call, though. They
wanted to play.
They wanted to play, but they also didn't want to be the guys saying, we're not going to play. They wanted the government to make the call. That's why it's taken so long.
Logistically, it's a big thing to cancel the broadcasts and move the games. But if you're not going to have any fans there, to me, there's no point in playing it. So
no, I agree.
We don't want to get back to those COVID times when we've got no one in the stands.
It gives those vibes, doesn't it?
It does feel a bit like that.
It's like getting text messages an hour out.
What's happening?
We're doing 10-minute quarters now.
Still remember that derby rocking up too. People didn't know whether they could get in like an hour before the game. It was so weird.
I remember being at the Melbourne West Coast game, round 1 of that year, and there was no one allowed in. They called it really late, but there wasn't even the teams weren't allowed to be there, but the 3 emergencies were.
Yeah.
So it was me, Nathan Vardy, and one other player. And I was in the whole Optus Stadium, and I was abusing Melbourne. I promise. There's a photo when the boys come off, they get a win, and they're pissing themselves laughing because I acted like a Nuffy fan for 2.5 hours. No, I do. Yeah, Max Gorn remembers it. All the boys remember it. I had to give something.
Well, true. You had to play your role of the day, Scully. Yep. Nicely done. You played your role today as well, mate. Been another great show. Thanks to everyone for being involved. Would love to hear from anyone out there. For all the regular channels as well, if you want to join, we can answer those maybe next week. But it's been great having you company here on the Footy Interchange.